Hello and welcome, Illumineers, to Let's Talk Lorcana, your weekly live show where we like to talk all things Lorcana, normally on a Monday, but we rescheduled today for Tuesday. I believe, Liam, you guys had travel or something like that. But
We
anyway,
did.
my name is Brandon, also known as B Squared 24. I am your co-host this evening, and I'm joined by Liam from the Illumineers, your host. How are you, Liam?
I am doing well. A little tired. We did have a big travel weekend, as you suggested. It's a couple crazy travel days. Apparently, American Airlines decided this weekend they would melt down, and so as a result, we got in at like 2 a.m. Got up this morning, went to work, and here I am. So,
Oh my gosh.
but I'm not gonna lie. All day long I was like, I was not. I was sort of looking forward to this, but I was also like, man, I'm so tired. But I tell you what, like in the hour before, like the adrenaline really gets me excited, and I'm just super jazzed to be talking to awesome folks and hanging out with you.
Yeah,
So
we got some cool guests this evening, some world's
yeah,
qualified players. So be sure to stick around that. Anybody that is hanging with us, be sure to say hi in the live chat. Like everything, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Shout out to Mandy and Steven in the chat. I see you guys. But yeah, that sounds kind of crazy getting in so late and then having to go up and go like anytime we travel to DLCs or I travel on the weekend at all, unless I'm able to get back at a like decent time on Sunday evening before work on Monday, I just want to like take the next day off of work. I don't know how. It's like really tough for me to want to get up and go to work if I'm exhausted after that. But I agree, it's exciting to be here and do the show and stuff. So hopefully you can get some sleep tonight, though.
I hope so. I don't know. I always say I hope so, and I always every night I plan to go to bed in a decent hour. And but the nature and all you all you part time content creators out there, feel this. I'm sure. Like when you have your job and your family and everything else, like all of your content gets crammed into your free time,
Mm-hmm.
and so most nights it's like, do I go to bed at a decent hour, or do I do a Patreon update, or do I
Yeah.
plan for next week's show, or
There's like
study?
always something. Like when I was
Mhm.
making content regularly, my sleep schedule was absolute trash. Like there were certain times in which I'd start showing up to my actual job late and it got kind of bad. And like so shout out to all the part-time content creators there, or anybody that's making content and working at the same time, because something that Jonty would always say is like making content is like having another full-time job if you're like
Yeah.
really trying to do it, and especially if you're trying to be one of these really awesome content creators. It's like on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and in all the places. It's tough to keep up with for sure.
Yeah, it is, because this is a complete like diversion from weekly topics, but it is, because you do feel like you have to be involved in the conversation in various places to stay relevant and to also see the debate. Because there are debates and conversations happening on Reddit, which are different than what's happening on Facebook, which is different than what's happening on Blue Sky. So like, yeah, I just feel the need to be everywhere. So
Yeah.
speaking of being everywhere and how difficult it is, thank all of you who are here this evening on the off night, coming with us to Tuesday. I was curious, how many folks would pop in, whether we'd have a different audience or some of our same folks, or whether Monday night was the best night. I don't know. So I'm interested to see who comes along.
Mm-hmm. See who shows up. Yeah.
So so we have some guests coming in later, as you suggested, a couple awesome worlds qualifiers. We really want, especially on this show, we really want to try to get to know, or for everybody watching to get to know as many of the players as possible before the world stream. So that when you all tune in and you're watching the brackets and you're watching, the coverage, those aren't just names; they're people like and their stories and all that. So we're going to start that tonight with a couple awesome players, one of which has never been on the show before. So we're pretty excited for that. And then we have some stuff to talk about ahead of time. Maybe we'll open some packs. It's going to be a fun time. So yeah, but before we bring in the guests, Brandon, like this week in Lorcana, set champs are still going on. We saw some products get out there and box openings. I don't know. What do you think about I have some questions to ask, but what do you think about the week in general?
Yeah, like you mentioned, set champs have been going on. I went to set champs myself this past weekend. It was the only one that I was gonna get to go to, and I walked away with a Hiram, so that's not
Yeah.
made it to the top 4. And so that was fun. I haven't really been keeping up. Like set champs seem to still be kind of kicking strong, I guess. There's some fun things that have happened. We've seen some sneak peeks at Rain at Jafar from various different content creators coming out with some content. I have a little bit of that in the works myself. I've got some openings and stuff that I still need to edit and post. So I look out for that kind of thing. And I believe you guys had some stuff that you guys uploaded as well for Reign of Jafar sneak peek things, which is pretty cool. So kind of cool to see that, you know, Ravensburger was able to send out some packages to people to do that. And to see the cards kind of in person. I think it was last week, was it, that we was it last week that we finally saw like all of the cards for Reign of Jafar? And I think pretty sure the Enchanteds we didn't know in like this time last week.
I think that's right. Yeah, most of them we didn't. And I think we saw the big drop. Was it last Monday?
Maybe
sometime mid last week, I think.
Yeah. So we officially know everything from Reign of Jafar, which is cool. They did the weekly lore cast last week where they played through the Palace Heist, Reign of Jafar. I have mine here. I haven't opened it up and played it yet, but really cool, fun variation to the one that they did with Ursula as well. But they did that on stream, so that's pretty cool. I don't know. Am I missing anything for things that have been happening this week?
No, I don't think so.
I said Hiram instead of Hero. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I meant Hero.
I was like, can you imagine? I mean, at the same time, like it would be one of the most desired cards, and then like the ultimate goal. Man, the set champs cards. I can imagine a scenario in the office where like somebody walks into somebody else's office and says, "Hey, you just banned Hiram?" You're like, "Yeah, we got a warehouse full." What do we do with those?
Oh my gosh.
Stephen Gattel, one of our like Lorcana historians, who's probably got this marked on his calendar for an update next year. 204 around May 13th. So yeah, so it was good. Getting to see a lot of the cards for the first time, getting to see them in person was really cool, and getting to see these products opened up. And it's a fun time right now because people are still theory crafting for Reign of Jafar, and looking at products and excited about pre-ordering their boxes and getting ready for their the first tournaments and opening weekend. At the same time, we still have set champs going on. So some people are like hyper focused on the last bit of Arcasia's Island, and it's a really interesting overlap right now, where some folks are going to be in Arcasia's Island until the very last moment. When they open their Reign of Jafar boxes. So so it's super fun. On that note, one thing I'd marked down to talk about before we get to our first segment, really funny conversations been happening the last few weeks, and I really chuckled today when one of our favorite people, Eric Switzer, who's always good for a cheeky tweet, clever tweet, posted today. The tell me the Lorcana. I'm gonna paraphrase. I'm gonna mess it up, but tell me the Lorcana community likes to invent drama. And then he said, "Reign of Jafar is coming out. We've got Worlds, da 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 da," and everybody's arguing over cutting up playmats.
Yes.
And I chuckled because it's been it started out, I think, as a lark. And I've seen more like Reddit posts and emotional tweets and Facebook posts about people cutting up their championship playmats than I have much else the last week. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this current phenomena? And I don't know. Maybe you can explain kind of this story for folks too who aren't familiar with what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's really funny. I think it's a very funny thing for people to do. I don't know the original why the people that did it first did it. I'm pretty sure they were all on the same team and decided that it might just be a funny thing to do to split it. I think it also is kind of doing this thing, at least I'm telling myself this, where it's almost like a message to Ravensburger that's like, hey, we kind of miss that there's no prizing in between 8th place and 2nd, like, leading all the way up through set champs. Because I remember that being a topic of discussion when they came through and told us how set champs were going to be updated, where we were getting all the extra, promos for people who didn't make top 8, but also that the 2nd place mat was going away and it was just going to be a championship mat. Because for anybody that doesn't know, the way that the set champs works now is if you make it to top 8, you earn the promo, but then you have to go through top 8 and then top 4 and then into the finals. And it doesn't matter if you lose in top 8 or if you lose in the finals, you're walking away with the same thing unless you're at the store that you're playing at is offering different pricing based on those finishes, which they usually are. But a lot of people I saw at least critiqued that there weren't like at least 2 playmats or different pricing from Ravensburger for those various places. So I think it's a really funny thing because it's kind of a way for players to be like, we're going to do this funny thing and make, a bunch of drama around it to kind of showcase like, hey, we don't really like that there's just the top end pricing with the championship mat. I also just think it's funny. Every time I see a picture of it, I laugh. I offered it to the people that I played with this weekend when we got to top 4. I was like, I'm down to split the mat if you guys are. And nobody was interested in doing that. But I'll be totally honest. If I walked away with a quarter of the hero set champs mat, I think it'd make for a great like mouse pad. Like I feel like it'd be a pretty decent size. You could just kind of put it there for your mouse. So I don't even think it's like necessarily ruined the mat if that's something you did. I feel like you could still find a use for it, which is pretty funny. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's cute. I think it's fun. I get some people hate it because they, it's the championship mat, but I enjoy it. I think it's funny.
Yeah. I don't know. I even in the comments here, I see, a bunch of different takes. This is one of those things that I think you're generally going to fall into immediately like one of 2 camps. There'll be a few people in the middle, but you're going to fall into one or 2 camps, and then it's going to be hard to move people out of it. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think it's cheeky. I think it's funny. I did interview, or I talked to a few folks who were part of like the 8 mat split, and then a couple others that did it afterwards after the first one. And everybody's generally said the same thing. And that is, hey, this wasn't like a protest. This was, we're all friends and we thought it would be a fun memory and cheeky and fun. And we all wanted a piece and we just it was a good lark. We got a good laugh out of it. The funny thing is, yes, even zoologists saying that the cutting mat makes me sad. I think you're either in one of 2 camps. Because I do. Before I get to the rest of that story, I do think going off this comment as collectors, because we're all as TCG players, we're mostly all degenerate collectors and like love collecting all our trinkets and cards and stuff, and it makes us like sad to see things that are beautiful destroyed. Yeah, I totally get it. But so I understand, but what I do think is interesting about it is this trend doesn't work if there is a 2nd place prize.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So it's like everybody has said it's not a protest. It's not, it's not something they're doing to send a message. It's just good fun. And I love it in that way. It creates memories. And I think memories are better than, things. But at the same time, it is interesting in that it is unintentionally a commentary on the incentive structure that exists now.
Yeah.
For good or bad. Like no value judgment on it. It's just, if there's a 2nd place mat, then nobody's cutting up the 1st place mat, and nobody's cutting up 2 mats because it's not as, so I don't know. It's a bit fun. Yeah. So it's interesting. I will say the last thing on this, I know it's been a popular comment now that the structure or the pricing structure for the top 8 needs to be changed. And the one thing I want to say on this is it probably would be nice to have something for, top 4, top 2 to give people incentive to keep playing. But what I will say is, keep in mind that we've been moving, steadily from, top 4 to top 8. Now we have, so over the past like 6 sets or 5 sets, we've been doing set champs. We have gotten better and better each time, and the company is kind of calibrated. And so let's keep in mind that we've made a lot of progress. And but I agree with everybody who's calling for, maybe something else to spice up the top 4, top 2. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. I can't. Live streaming is hard enough, and then I want to read all of your fun comments, especially when I'm talking. And so shout out to everybody participating in the chat. With that, Brandon, I think we've left him in the green room a little bit longer than we should.
Let's pull in our first guest.
All right. So really excited to welcome in Josh Paultre, who I'm going to give away who it is. You all know anyway. Josh Paultre, who's in the green room. We'll bring him in a second. But Josh is the first ever North American Disney Lorcana champion. I think just a couple hours behind the first ever in Europe.
Yep.
Josh came in. It was a bit of a sleeper in the tournament. Nobody saw his deck coming. And Brandon, there are moments that I will treasure forever.
Yes.
Where we were in the finals trying to figure out what this deck was that we'd never seen before, what it was doing in the finals of the first DLC. And so I'll always remember that. Every time I get to talk to Josh, it's wonderful to hear how he views the game. And anyway, let's bring him in. That's my introduction. Josh, thanks so much.
Hey, Liam. Hey, Brandon. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on here.
Yeah. Always a pleasure to have you. Thanks for taking time off of work to jump in. I don't know. There's a lot of people that we get to talk to on the show, a lot of different competitive players and deck builders. And you're one that I always love talking to whenever I get the chance, because you're a bit of an enigma.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like really competitive players who spend a lot of time on social media, giving their deck lists and their opinions and, doing Metafy and all that. And you make playmats and kind of keep your Lorcana, goings on to yourself. And so it's always interesting to get you in here and hear, I don't know, what you think of the game.
Yeah. I definitely like to keep it in my local scene. I think it's just fun to have the surprises kind of there. And then, generally it's also a time thing, right? As far as like the public stuff, I see Facebook post all the time, Metafy's from a lot of individuals, whether it's Zan, DKP, and a lot of the other players. I constantly am watching their content because I still think it's great and it's super helpful information to my own strategies and stuff. But I definitely, run out of time eventually to go to as many events as I would like to, especially like, just the bigger tournaments. But I'm lucky that, my locals, I've got 3 different ones, constantly per week. So, always plenty to keep play testing in person and stuff that it never gets stale. So, and I was lucky enough to actually go to Hartford this weekend for Connecticut for Star City Games event, and got second in the 2K. So it was cool to go to like a little bit of a bigger event than just the locals, since I haven't been able to go to some of the larger DLCs in the most recently outside of Continentals. But always a blast. Still love playing the game. And I'm ecstatic to be going to Worlds, of course. So
yeah. It occurs to me one day, just as a fun little segment, I want to invite one of your locals on to figure out what it's like being part of your playtest group. Let's see. But yeah, no, I also, I'll bring up your deck list for Hartford in a moment, because it's fun to talk about. And I'm also imagining you walking out of that tournament like, I still got it.
It did feel like, oh yeah, I'm not just like a one-trick pony at times. I could still do well in some of the larger events, because of course, you're always questioning that, right? Especially when, my local scene, even on a good day or like a great set champs, right? At the best, like, you're still looking at like maybe 30 players. Sometimes if you're really great randomly, you could possibly touch 40, but not like, common at all. So getting to go to an SGC, even though it wasn't huge, it was still 74 players, which is larger than I would say most people's, at least local scene, right? So
yeah, that is a pretty big, actually, that's a pretty big scene. 75 is a good number. We occasionally have set champs that number, but yeah, I think I don't know. To me, like 30, 40 is kind of the critical mass when you know you're going to get some real good competition in there.
I agree.
Not that smaller
think-
events can't.
Yeah.
But yeah, so okay, before we look at your deck list, I want to for people who haven't seen you on the show before, haven't followed you, and who are planning on tuning in and watching Worlds, I kind of want them to know a little bit more about you and your TCG background and where you come from. So I know a little bit more, but I'm not gonna read your whole bio. I'm gonna ask you some questions, but you've been playing TCG since you were little, right? Like 7?
7 years old on the dot. He's got it. Look at your memory, Liam. It's
I have
going
notes.
well.
It's I mean, it's not my memory. I have notes. No, 7 years old. Yeah, so all your life.
Yeah. So yeah, I started at 7 years old, going to my local game store, playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually with my father. It started technically, I guess, at like 5 or 6 when he busted out the cards on the kitchen table, before dinner, and it was just like addicting. I'd watch the TV show growing up, just of course screaming the theme song at the top of my lungs, and just fell in love with the art and just holding cards. Like I don't know what it was, but I also enjoyed card tricks, magicians, and things like that, and just getting to watch some of your favorite characters and then actually getting to play with them. It's just awesome. So it was a great experience, and then it just kind of became like a local friend group. I didn't realize like how many of my friends, from elementary school, middle school, and then high school, growing up, would be showing up once a week at my local game store on Sundays. So yeah, I'm super thankful to have that community and have started so little, because it's definitely paid off.
So is that what you've played primarily, Josh? Is Yu-Gi-Oh up until Lorcana, or was there anything else as you were getting older that you played as well?
Yeah, so Yu-Gi-Oh was definitely the predominant game. I had played Yu-Gi-Oh essentially, I would say, pretty much right up until Lorcana got announced. I would say like two months beforehand is that kind of when I had slowed down. But during that time, I had also picked up and played Hearthstone digitally a lot, which I think Lorcana actually has a lot of game mechanics that are very similar to it. I would say it's probably the most similar of the games I've played to Lorcana is Hearthstone, and played a little bit, but not, I wouldn't say like super competitive. I had grinded ladder to legend, but a lot of people do that. Nothing like, actual tournaments for Hearthstone. I had also dabbled in Cardfight Vanguard, and then, played pickup games of like Commander and Magic with friends, and maybe a little bit of Pokemon, but definitely Yu-Gi-Oh was always kind of the biggest card game I had started off with. I'd done relatively well. I gotten my invite to nationals, I think 2 or 3 times through Yu-Gi-Oh. So, and also with some more rogue strategies, because of course, I never like to just follow the leader. I always wanted to play something a little bit outside the box. I think it's a little bit more fun when your opponent has to pick up your cards and read what they do.
Why? Like, why? Here's why I asked that question. I'm fascinated by people, and there's a lot of top level competitive players that are this way, but there's some that really stand out. You bringing in that deck to Atlanta. Of course, everyone talks about Bivens and his outside the box decks, and there's some others. Zan's always cooking and doing stuff. And the thing to me is, if you are one of the best TCG players in the world, and you are confident in your strategy, your memory, your analytic skills, your ability to read people, and you're like, I am one of the best players, it seems to me there's an incentive to take what is the best deck in a format, or what you think has the best particular chance in that moment. It's proven resilient, tried and tested, and to carry it in. And to be like, hey, I know I'm going to play this deck better than anybody else. So in the mirror, I'm favored. And yeah, so that it always strikes me that is the incentive structure. And therefore it takes some courage to be like, you know what? I'm one of the best players, but I'm going to take a gamble and I'm going to go off this way. I might succeed, wildly, succeed or wildly fail. Why go that route?
So I think that like at the end of the day, right, it's a card game, and so you're there always, of course, to have fun. And for me, playing and somehow finding that kind of niche way to surprise an opponent or take a victory through that, even when they think like, oh, I've solved it or I found the best deck, that is like the most fun thing to do. So I'm a firm believer in generally that like there's not really such thing as like a solved meta. I've heard that term thrown around a lot. I do think it can, like, the term can exist in the context of like a year or like more time has passed. Like when people talk about like past formats for other card games, it's like, well, the card pool hasn't changed in 15 years for that past format, right? So like if they're playing that time period, then maybe you can say like the meta is solved. But when a meta is like only 3 months, for example, in Lorcana before new cards get introduced, I think and an ever changing card game when more sets are always being dropped, I find it less solved and less of that like confidence of saying like, oh, this is definitely the best deck. And then also too, I think that the surprise factor uh, does lead to a very different like game state because they're not ready for it, right? So they're not like used to playing against that same strategy, and they don't always know the lines. So I like that, and I like that thinking out of the box. Sure, you can definitely go with the tried and true strategies that a lot of people have tested multiple games. And I do agree with your logic that a lot of times the pros will also look at it and say, okay, well, if I've very confident in my ability and my deck building skills, in theory you'll win the mirror match more often than not. But I personally just never liked to play the exact same thing. I liked something different. It always makes me have more fun, more enjoyment I get out of it. I don't know how else to describe it other than I like playing with my favorite cards, my favorite characters, those kind of things.
That's interesting. It's a fun answer. I got to shout out one other person. Got to shout out Mo Shamblin too, as one of those creative deck builders, because I'll never forget, Brandon. You have gone with Mo and tried some out there decks.
Oh yeah. And so I can't help but appreciate players like Josh and Mo for that reason, because like I don't have the brains to like come up with a deck that's good enough that I can bring into a pool of a bunch of players like that and still perform well. So it's always really really fun to see people that are like skilled at the deck building part and the playing part come in and express those skills and things like that, because I don't want to say like anybody can pick up a meta deck and like do well at a tournament, but it's obviously like if you're taking that deck building piece out, or a majority of it out, right, where if the majority of the deck is already built and you're just adding a couple tech cards, like I don't know, I feel like I don't want to say you're making it harder on yourself, because I totally understand where Josh is coming from. We're like, we're here to have fun, like you just want to play with the cards that you want to play with. But I feel like it's extra hard for those players to come into a tournament and like come in with those decks and do well, and it just goes to show like how good of those good players they are.
Yeah.
I can definitely understand that too a little bit, Brendan, as well. And I'll say this as well too. It's not like I don't ever play the meta decks, of course. Like, you have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that's where you're starting with, because you're never going to find the anti-meta or the counters or like the lines that they might not be used to until you've played those. So like if you talk to my locals, they'll see me on like, a meta deck for like 2 weeks and then just come with something random to set champs the week after that. So I definitely still love getting like the versatility. I think it's just always best to have practice with majority of the decks of the format that are like the most common, and it's really great to see all the top list and like all the content from you guys to all the other players and what they're creating, because it really does give you the inspiration. Like I'm not saying like it's bad to like copy or what they call net deck at all.
Yeah,
I think it's
definitely.
always a good starting point. Like you have to learn it. It's important always to understand the why and not just like the how. So it's like, okay, I know like why this is in here, rather than like it's in here because somebody else told me it was here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I mean, it's an important insight. Yeah, it is always interesting when you do net deck, or you have because I'm fully guilty, like especially in the early days of Lorcana, when I would net deck this or net deck that, I'm trying to figure out different things, and I'd be at an event and I'd be like set champs, and when you're at set champs or league, there's a really fun thing that can happen after a game where if you have a particular good interaction with your opponent, you both sit down after the game and you start to ask yourselves, well, why did this go that way? Why did this go this way? Can I look at your build? Look at my build. Let me see what you're running. It's one of my favorite things when somebody's like, hey, let me take a look. And then you start asking each other, why is this in there? Why do you have 2 instead of 3 of this? And you're running these scenarios where you're like, I don't know. Like, why do you have 2 of these? And you're like, well, Because Aaron Rubin runs too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's what the deck list said I found online.
Yeah.
Those are the important questions to be asking, though. From the start. Like I'm a firm believer you always learn more from your losses than you do also from your wins and stuff. And so, like, when you're talking to your opponents and stuff, even this past weekend, that, like, the games that I've lost, it's like always just interesting to hear, like, the feedback on the lines, or, like, question a play of whether or not anything could have been changed differently. And as long as you're positive and, like, nice about it and don't blow up because you lost, the other person's normally always happy to, like, talk about it. I think this community is just great for that reason. Most of my opponents, that I've gone against, all of them are always happy to, like, chat about the match after the fact. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So speaking of this last weekend, maybe let's take a look at your deck now. Because I was going to segue. We wanted to ask a little bit about what you think about the current meta and where Reign of Jafar is going and all that. But this is a nice springboard to do that, because you won second place at a 2K in Hartford with this. I like Big Megs and I cannot lie. So this is interesting because, you see these colors nowadays and you're like, immediately, if you've been around for a while, you're like, okay, this is the Under the Sea control. Okay, wait, no, nowadays it's Chernadogs, but this is not the average Chernadogs build.
it's missing a lot of the dogs other than the one brand, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Representing them today, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, I like to be creative and fun with my deck names. You remember, from Atlanta, dog droppings and stuff.
Yeah.
Immature but funny, right? Hopefully, still playing it safe. Anyhow, I've been playing, variations of what people have been calling turn dogs for a while, and I had actually showed up to Continentals with yellow green. So before we had gotten the 7-drop tramp, and I had been playing Scar and a couple other things, but I was always playing Meg, and I loved the way that this card performed. It was just a very, like, punishing 1, 2, 3 line, and then with the Rapunzel on 4, that to the point where I felt like a lot of the decks in the meta, that if you had, like, that strong opening, which is pretty likely in a deck that plays 2 1-drops that quest for 2, and then, like, pretty heavy 2 drops like Piglet, or things that just they want to clear, because essentially, like, what you'll end up doing is your turn 1 Daisy or Merfolk, turn 2 Piglet, or Prince or Yzma, and then turn 3 Meg, and then you're waiting until that generally turn 3 to turn the Piglet and the Daisy, or the Merfolk and Piglet, or any combination of the 2 1 and 2 drops, so that your opponent will then want to challenge it on their turn 3, essentially, and that allows Meg to generally trade on the turn 4 and then get Rapunzeled. And majority of the 3 drops in the game, such as Fox, they only have like 4 attack, or they cap out like at 5 at most. And so it almost always makes it so they kind of are stuck in the situation of having to either attack your 2-drop to prevent you from questing, because you're gaining so much lore from Piglet or Daisy, and if they do, then they'll get punished by Meg Rapunzel. Almost every time, because, like, Fox naturally clears the Daisy Duck with the 4 attack. Same thing with the Nala and the Little John. So you're kind of baiting them into the playing of the Fox on turn 3 to then swing in with Meg and then Rapunzel it, and then at that point you have a 3-drop and a 4-drop that both quest for 2 that are almost both at full health. So I think it's kind of like one of those mid-rangey aspects to a normal aggro deck that people aren't generally expecting. Cove also puts in kind of instrumental work in making that Meg at times be ridiculous. Like, I've had Meg survive against a Maui because she becomes a 4/7 and the 6/5, and so again those numbers become really, really tough for those Rapunzel lines, and just really, really strong. So I've loved her as a 3-drop. I think that, like, she's kind of like the heart and soul of the deck, at least right now, in the way and the format I've been kind of playing the deck.
Yeah.
I have to say, I really like the Clarabelles in this deck too, because it seems like, it's a more aggressive strategy. All right, even if this is leaning a little bit more mid range, if you don't happen to find those Rapunzels and refill your hand, you can rely on those Clarabelles to pull, draw a bunch of cards right back up after you kind of empty your hand.
Yeah. I love that Clarabelle also is, like, because I feel like it's genuinely almost like a poker game / mind game on whether or not sometimes you have the Rapunzel. And so
Mm-hmm.
some people will be like, oh, they do have it, so I'm not going to play into this Meg, or I'm not going to challenge this 4-drop. And if you're able to drop a Clarabelle instead on turn 4, you're always lower generally on cards. So the 3-drop will almost always trigger because you discarded a card the turn before with Meg, and that sets you up for the turn because you do that on turn 4, the turn 5 shift line. And again, as an aggro deck, you're expending your hand so fast that Clarabelle can sometimes read draw 6, draw 7 against some of those other decks, and it can be very, very nasty. I was on the 1-drop for a little while, but items kind of fell out of favor without Flaversham, and I didn't really feel like she was getting the value that she needed to. I felt that the 3-drop was just always better in that scenario. I also really liked Be Our Guest as like, kind of a sleeper card as well, with Go-Go and Yzma and Prince. All these 2-drops that don't really quest for a lot like Piglet. You're able to like sing it and find the answer, because I feel like the biggest weakness of the deck for me, at least when I was playing Churn Dogs, is not having the optimal 4-drop line, whether that's Rapunzel or Tramp, or needing that late game finisher of Chernabog. And in my opinion, Be Our Guest kind of reads pretty similar to almost Vision of the Future in the blue decks, because normally the Discover 5 is like, okay, I can find the exact answer I'm looking for. Be Our Guest is limited to characters, but when your entire deck, except for 6 cards, is characters, it pretty much reads the same, right? And
Yeah.
it's singable and inkable. So I think that definitely caught some people off guard. I remember there were games I would sing it, like, with Prince, and then, I'd find the shift Clarabelle, and then, gain like draw 4 this past weekend against like a purple steel player, and it was just nuts. We're like, yep, I wasn't expecting him to find that answer that quickly off the top, but the fact that it's singable kind of allows you to still keep that 4 ink for the optimal turn if you were missing that 4-drop, whether it's the Tramp or the Rapunzel.
Interesting. I should have bought 4 Clarabelles when I had a chance.
I paid money for mine. I remember when she came out.
Yeah, I feel like they were all the rage for a while, and then I feel like they fell out of favor for a little while and kind of dropped a little bit. And you got people like Josh running them back, and I don't know, we're gonna spike again.
So, yeah.
No, don't take financial advice from us. No, it's fun. So it's almost unfair to kind of ask where you see. So we are curious, I think, about your thoughts on like Reign of Jafar and where you see the meta going. But we have to, I think, for the audience, put this big asterisk here, which is like, it's kind of unfair to ask world competitors like almost anything about the current state of the game.
Format. Yeah.
Well, I will say that this deck, obviously, just like any deck, right? As soon as the new set comes out, is of course would change, right?
Sure.
Drastically. I think that there are definitely a lot of cards, obviously, in new ladies and tramps included being introduced. I think like another, I guess, good question to answer is probably why I don't play the 1-drop lady currently and the 2-drop tramp. And for my logic behind it is that you would force yourself into mulliganing hard for suboptimal like cards that you might not see, right? Because like lady, if you don't see tramp, is almost just unplayable because you're playing a 1-drop uninkable 1/2. And when there's only 2 tramps in the deck, and one of them being a 7 cost that doesn't come down till turn 4, the other 2-drop, unless your opponent quests or does something, it being a Merlin Crab effect, is a very strong card, but it doesn't actually give you. There's rarely things that you're able to generally trade into. I've noticed those early games, so you're kind of just playing a 1/3 early to make Lady a better card. But in that case, I'd rather just have Merfolk, instead, or any other 1-drop that I feel like doesn't expend my hand as much. And also, again, if the attack was the issue and I wanted something with a little bit stickier attack to dodge the muses and stuff, I felt like the Meg was that perfectly suited, because that 3/6 stat line is just really obnoxious for a lot of decks to deal with. And the discard, like I said, is rarely an issue, because it kind of just actually clears up the hand of things that you didn't need, or you couldn't maybe get rid of off of your Yzma, or your Tramp, naturally your 7-drop of cycling. And it also just helps fill the Chernabog up one more too. So I didn't feel that the 1 and 2 drops were as impactful, at least this set. Next set, I think a lot of that changes because we got so many more ladies and tramps that I think that the 1-drop might not be as weak, or like as mulligan reliant, because as I said, when you get that 7-9 opening hand, if you see the 1-drop lady but you don't have the 2-drop tramp, it can feel kind of punishing if you keep it and then just don't see it. Like I actually played the mirror this past weekend, and he slammed down 1 lady and then turn 2 slammed down another 2. But he never found the 7-drop tramp or the 2-drop tramp. And so Meg, he couldn't bounce it with Kit as a 3/6 kind of just went and rolled. And those 3 1-drops, they were only questing for 1 with 2 health. He couldn't afford to quest because the trades would have been just too unfair. So yeah, I found that they kind of brick right now, but in the future, again, I think that a lot of that would definitely change.
Yeah, I'm super impressed at all the different lines that you keep running through with this deck and sort of how the cards kind of come together, especially around the Meg card. And, in any Amber deck, I feel like Rapunzel is super valuable, and the way you've just sort of curated this deck to sort of force your opponent into a trap to like allow you to get some of those Rapunzel trades is really interesting. One of the cards I have a question on real quick before we move on. You mentioned the 1 and 2 drops. What's the reasoning behind the Prince? I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
So the Prince is almost like, a backup kind of Meg at times, which is really weird to say, but just as a 0/5, the stat line is huge. And then if it's in Cove, it becomes a 1/6. Bodyguard also, I've noticed, kind of forces, again, the opponents to feel like they're losing the board state, or, they can't catch up to the 1-drop daisies because of the fact that they can't break past the Prince. And that 5 health, I think, really is the breaking point, just because I think Fox kind of sets the standard on turn 3. So
Mhm.
if you're able to like do a 1-drop and then 2 more 1-drops, and then or a Piglet on turn 2, and then turn 3 able to drop like a Prince and another 1-drop, uh, it prevents the Piglet from being immediately traded with. And I love its stat line, and again, it also kind of combos with a Be Our Guest as a card that you don't mind to sing because you want it to be in Bodyguard anyway. So it's just a really healthy stat line, I feel like, for the deck. The uninkable count is definitely higher, but with the amount of cycle between the Yzmas and the Meg always kind of discarding a card, you're kind of always in the back of your mind thinking on turn 3, like, I'm already going to get rid of one of these uninkables anyway. So that doesn't impact it as much. And obviously, like the cap ink, you're generally hitting is 5 at best, just to make it so the shift Clarabelle. Like, rarely am I getting to 7 to actually hard play a
Mhm.
Clarabelle unless I had a lot of Rapunzels resolve that game or something.
Interesting. Unless something's gone terribly wrong or terribly right.
Yeah, as I say, unless essentially, yeah, if the 7-drop Clarabelle's coming down, things probably went really well for me with those Rapunzels. Like, I did have some games where I would do the first Rapunzel, and then they'd play like have to quest out with another 3/3, and then Meg would get the trade again, and the second Rapunzel fed me 6 cards, and then I can get up to those ridiculous ink counts. But otherwise, yeah, I would say most of the time you're just shifting that Clarabelle.
That's so cool. That was fun. I'm glad. I'm glad you went to Hartford and gave us. I don't know, because we could have talked about all kinds of things, but one of the best ways to get to know a competitive player is to dissect, one of their builds and their thoughts on it, and to pick your brain. So that was a lot of fun.
Absolutely, I was happy to share it. So,
last question from me before we let you go. How I won't ask about prep. I won't ask you to tip your hand anything, but how are you feeling going into Worlds?
extremely nervous for sure. Right? It's you're playing with the best of the best. Like, I hold all these players in super high regard. I watch a lot of them, like I said, in their content. They're all incredible, right? So it's going to be a tough challenge. So of course I'm nervous about what I want to think I want to bring, or just theories and stuff, or what I think they're going to bring. And then in general, of course, it's also exciting because we have this brand new set, and there's not going to be like too much time necessarily to get to actually test it. So I think it's going to be really cool to see how fast and innovative all
Mhm.
the players together will be for this event. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Brendan, any last questions?
No, not for me.
No, man. Well, Josh, this is one of those scenarios, and I say this with a lot of our guests, and it's true every time. We could talk to you all night,
Of course.
but definitely very few weeks between now and and Worlds, and a lot of players to get to, and maybe we'll have you back on before the tournament, and hopefully we'll have you back on afterwards.
Absolutely.
Before I ask how people can follow you, even though I know that there isn't really a way, I will say that for me, I've gotten to know pretty much all of the players going to Worlds. There's a couple that I haven't had a chance to meet yet, but you're one of the players that I love to follow because you're just a wild card. And if you're watching Worlds out there, if you're going to be one of those folks tuning into the stream, just take a look at what Josh is doing. because you'll definitely find, even in established decks, some fun little twists. And he's one of the folks that I don't know, that I love to follow. So thanks again, Josh. How can people follow you?
They can absolutely just follow a friend, request me on Instagram. Feel free to say hi at any events. I never am shy about that. So otherwise, as far as posts and stuff, I haven't. I obviously don't make too much, but if you're ever in the local upstate New York area, of course, locals, I'm always there. But yeah, don't be a stranger. Feel free to say hi, obviously, on Facebook and Messenger and stuff like that too. So. Yeah.
Oh, and we do need to get to our next guest, but I would be remiss. I set up a really nice sign off, and I'm going to ruin it here. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, if you love nice playmats and you love the old Spellground playmats, one of Josh's other hobbies, besides being a lawyer and being a TCG player, is creating basically like replica Spellground playmats, but they're really, really nice. And he makes those and sells them. And do you have any sitting right there?
Yeah, I actually do. Let me just grab it real quick.
Yeah. And of course, Rascalot and Twitch saying, I love cutting playmats. Not these though.
No, I wouldn't cut these. Yeah.
Yeah. I should have done this earlier, but oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I see these all the time.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? I will say too, for all those who have actually, gotten one off me, thank you guys so much. Nothing brings me more joy than going to the SGC this weekend and seeing people playing on them. As Liam said, I've been always a big fan of cloth playmats. I just like the durability of them. I literally crumple up mine and throw it in the bag all the time. And it's just a smooth card sliding experience. So yeah. Thank you so much again, for having me. Like I said, Liam, it's always a pleasure. I'm always happy to be here. So really appreciate both your time. You too, Brandon. It's been phenomenal to meet you.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Thanks so much, Josh. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah.
All right. See you. All right. God, I'm terrible at sign-offs. I need a better... I'm bad at saying goodbyes in general. But yeah, it is what it is.
It's hard.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying it's hard to say goodbye.
Yeah, hard to say goodbye and to segue properly. And it's hard to bring people. I'm just really bad at transitions. One day I'll be a professional streamer. But yeah, I will say, I said it up front, but I think, Brandon, tell me if you feel the same way. Josh will forever be connected to one of my favorite Lorcana memories.
Absolutely.
Which is Atlanta DLC in general, but also getting to do that finals.
Yeah, there's a lot wrapped up in that memory that I like. Like I was mentioning earlier, Josh just kind of coming in the tournament at all, it being the first North American Disney Lorcana challenge, and coming in with a deck and what was already a relatively wide format and bringing something that nobody was expecting to go so far. And then I've said it before, but one of my favorite casting memories ever is being in the booth with you at Atlanta. I think we were given the wrong ink colors for what Josh was playing. And so he started playing cards, and we had to figure out live what he was playing. And the only versions of Amber Amethyst that were being played at the time were more aggressive versions. So we thought it was that at first. Then we kept seeing more and more cards, and Liam and I are secretly checking our phones to see what the cards do, because we're we haven't seen this card in forever, and it's obviously not the deck we think it is. And it was a very fun and frantic time, one that I cherish definitely. And Josh is always obviously connected to that memory, which is really fun. So
yeah. And dog droppings, and anyway, just and a wonderful person, as all the world's players are, just fun to talk to. Well, that was our first player for the evening. Again, if you're here, thanks for joining us. We have a lot of folks came over, Brandon, from Monday night. Nice. A lot of familiar faces, Glimineers are here. So pretty good audience. Thanks everyone for being here. If you're just joining us, we just got done talking with Josh Paultre, one of the world's qualifiers, and we're going to bring in another one here in a moment. Very excited as we gear up for the world stream and that event. And don't go anywhere afterwards. I think Brandon and I may open a couple packs of Reign of Jafar near the end of the stream, and yeah. So without further, I mean, we should just bring in Patrick. People are here to listen to them. But I said earlier that we've gotten to know a lot of the world's qualifiers, and interact with them, have some of them show. But there's some that we haven't met yet. And I have to admit, Patrick is one of the folks that I've followed for a little while, especially after he got his Continentals invite. But is not somebody that I have met personally or interacted with on our stream or had on the show. And I am sad about that, but I'm really glad we get to rectify that this evening, because another very talented player and another person I can't wait to watch in Worlds. So let's bring him in all the way from Quebec. It's Patrick Cote.
Hey, hello, everyone.
Patrick.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
of course. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Whose last name I'm absolutely saying wrong.
Do it again. I think it was right, actually. It's
Cote. I just went Cote straight out.
Cote. Yeah, it's the accent that are a bit challenging, but yeah, it's good. You did well.
We need to know. We need to know these things.
Yeah.
Patrick, before we want to ask a bunch of questions, but I would be remiss. I want to do it first so I don't forget by the end. You're not only a player and all that, but you're also a content creator yourself. You've got your own content out there that people can follow.
For a few months now, I started to do a podcast. It's in French Canadian, but if anyone wants to learn French, we can also like insert the chat in English. We did a reveal in English for a card for Jaffa, which was very nice. I think it's a playable card also, so that's cool. So yeah, feel free for everyone. And I also see some familiar names in the chat, so it's good to see them. The channel is growing. It's in French, but again, we can always translate stuff if needed. So feel free to come by on Monday. It's a pretty fun time.
J'ai étudié français pour 3 ans.
Oh, that's good.
But that's all I remember from high school. So that's
yeah, it's a good start. We can work on that.
Man, that would be great on broadcast if I could just bust out,
speaking in French.
I visited. I had a layover in Paris for a few hours, and but of course we were like, I'm going to leave the airport and see some of the sites. And I was like, oh man, I took French for like 4 or 3 years in high school. I remember all this French, and I got in the cab driver. I'm like, hey, I speak a little French, just so you know. And he proceeded to ask me like the easiest questions, like, are you going to a party? What's your, and I completely botched it. It was awful. It was embarrassing. Anyway, I shouldn't speak French. But anyway, Steven, that's because I worked on that one sentence just so in scenarios like this, I could bust it out and pretend that I know what I'm doing. Anyway, Patrick, so you're another person who's been playing TCGs probably almost as long as you can remember.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm not sure exactly when I started, but my dad introduced me to Magic the Gathering, maybe 12 years old or something like that. But back in the day, obviously, I was a kid with not a lot of money, so it was kind of hard to win tournaments with a very low budget deck, but it was still fun. I learned a lot of the mechanics, and as soon as you start to learn a TCG, usually you can go to another one, and it just makes it a lot easier. It's kind of like learning languages. Like as you learn more, it's become easier to learn even more. So yeah, it's a very good starting point, and I think a lot of the players in Lorcana, that at least the competitive players, started with Magic. It's kind of the root of all TCGs, and it was a fun time. But I was more of a digital player, so I started with Magic, but after that, once I got past like the kid age and went more like teenager and young adult, I had my own money, so I started to play digital game where I could have like the top tier deck, and now it was much more fun for competitive. So yeah, that's why I really get things started. So it's been a while. I played a lot of card game, both physical and digital, for sure.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
I was going to ask Patrick, what's the thing that brought you to Disney Lorcana? Like, were you playing since the beginning? Was it something you brought in later? How did that start for you?
I feel like after the COVID happened, I kind of wanted to see more people. So I was playing a lot of digital game like Hearthstone and Legend of Runeterra and Marvel Snap, but at some point I wanted to see more people, and like, oh, what's the TCG? And Magic was kind of like too far ahead. Like I had to catch up so many cards to go back to Magic, and like, okay, let's not go back to this. And then I saw in one of the content creators for board games, he announced that Lorcana was one of the most anticipated games. So I was like, oh, that's an interesting game. And I was thinking, if the game rules are good, like definitely the IP is gonna make this game go crazy. So I didn't like go crazy yet because I couldn't have the rules. But as soon as I started to read the rule before the game came out, like, oh, there's a lot of cool mechanics that I did recognize from other games. Like I played the World of Warcraft TCG, which is the physical game that kind of bring Hearthstone afterwards on the map. It's a lot of mechanics are similar, even in Lorcana. So I'm like, okay, the rules are good. The IP is very nice. I'm not a Disney fan, but as much as I play Lorcana, I kind of figure that I kind of know all the characters, so maybe I am. I don't know what's the definition for that, but I do recognize like most characters. So maybe I'm not too far from being a Disney fan, but just the mechanics were good enough for me. I would have played that game even without the IP, but I thought that if I want to invest in a card game, it's better if there's a collector market and more players, and especially what I like the most is as I started playing Lorcana, like I could see a lot of diversity in the players. Like we have kids, we have male, female, we have a lot of different people that coming in tournament, which is not something I was used to playing Magic, or also played a lot of Keyforge. So I thought that was a very nice community to get started and collaborate and play. So yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I mean, you all have like a pretty vibrant Lorcana community up there in Quebec. A lot of players that we've gotten to know, a lot of competitive players are from that area. It's I don't know, Brandon, about you, but like it's surprising the number of players that I look up, at some of these big tournaments. I'm like, oh, they're from Quebec. Of course.
Yeah, if you think about Quebec, like the region, we had I don't have the number by heart, and someone's probably gonna correct me in the chat, but I think around like 8 people at the Continental, and we had 3 in the top 16. So that's
Wow.
a pretty good conversion rate for the Quebec folks, and a lot of them were very close to do the top cut. So yeah, it's a good competitive scene for sure. We just need more big tournament, as we can see in the US, but outside of that, and hoping for DLC in Montreal, that would be so nice. I'm crossing finger for that. So yeah, the community is big. It's good for practicing, right? Like you want to practice with the best players, and we have a bunch. Everyone knows, obviously, a Sailor, Pierre Marc, and we also have Clara. So a lot of good players, and I'm skipping names, but just these are already a well-known names. So yeah, it's good to have that kind of competitive scene that's so local but still so competitive.
You guys are well represented, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's good.
Did you? So I'm kind of playing the same. There's a ton of questions I want to ask you,
sure.
mostly about like worlds and stuff. But I'm going to try to avoid questions that where you could inadvertently give your opponents an edge. It's one of the things about talking to some of your worlds folks is I don't want to put you in a bad situation. But did you play any set champs at all?
Yeah, I was playing a lot of set champs when Lorcana started, so I did 2 back-to-back stage, and I won the champion mat both with red purple. And then I did some Ursulas. I won a champion mat with blue steel. So my goal is to play all the deck. Basically, that makes me unpredictable, and everyone just comes to me and say, "Oh, what's he playing today?" They're so curious because I'm trying to play different decks. And then at the DLC to Chicago, I was on red blue. That's where I did top 16. And then I did top 4 with purple steel. So basically, I played like 4 different decks and had good result with all of them. So that's what I want to do with Worlds. I want to make sure I can play any deck. So when I arrive there, like they won't really know what I'm going to play, and hopefully I can know how to play the deck well as playing the deck, but also how to play against it. So in my opinion, the best way to know how to beat the deck is to play it yourself and see its weakness when it's in your hand. So yeah, I played a lot of deck, but now these days I don't play a lot of set champs because I have a toddler and a baby, so my free time is quite limited. So I kind of keep my spare time for the bigger events. So I only have one set champ coming this weekend because it was the one with the biggest prize, but that's it. So I'm not playing that many set champ.
I like that, but yeah, survey the scene to find the one you want to win. And
yeah, I mean, if you can only do one, might as well do the one with the biggest prize, right?
That's right.
There you go. I like that mindset.
We'll have to do a follow up and send us, if you don't mind, and Brandon, maybe we follow up and figure out what Patrick plays this weekend and how you do.
Yeah, it might be spicy. I did practice a lot with a new version of a deck on an online place, and yeah, it did give me good results. So probably gonna go with this. And I did play it today in the league and went 6-0. So yeah, it's promising.
Well, now I really want to know. And
You'll have to come back next week.
Come back
Yeah, for sure. It's the tournament's on Saturday, so I'm gonna be able to just reveal the list. It's probably gonna be on Ink Deck or something anyway. But
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to do this. And all you watching, come back next week for the sequel to the story. Find out what Patrick's running.
Playing a card that I think no one has seen for like 3 sets at least, if not like ever. So yeah, it's pretty spicy for that.
Patrick, I have a question. You mentioned that something that's really important to you is being unpredictable as a player and sort of knowing how to play a bunch of different decks. What is it about specific decks or cards in a particular meta that catches your eye that like makes you want to pursue that deck or test that deck versus any of the others?
Yeah, well, I think in any decks, I want to make sure the deck can draw. So right now, I feel like you can use Amethyst with any color and it works well. So that's not a big challenge. So I'm usually looking at how can I make a deck without Amethyst that can still draw cards, because drawing cards is so key in this game. And some colors have problems drawing cards, like we've seen with Ruby Steel. It's kind of hard. You can play Whole New World, but like you don't ramp. So, and it helps the Sapphire player. So yeah, it's always about how can I make a deck work without Amethyst, because Amethyst, I feel it's being not easy but kind of straightforward. You can put like some package of drawing mechanics and you can put any other color with it and it works. Like that's what I did at the top 4 Continental with the purple Steel. Like I wanted to draw a lot of cards. I have the bounce package and the dog that draws even more, so drawing was not a problem. And when I was playing with purple in the first set gem, it was also not a problem to draw. So every time I'm trying to build a deck that's not purple, that's the first thing I'm looking at. It's like, how can I make this deck draw? And that's why I like cards like Clarabelle. And Diablo is also another good example. Rapunzel is quite key in Ember deck, so I do hope she's get reprinted in Fable or something. Because
you and me both.
Otherwise, Ember's gonna have a tough time unless they print another card that draws for Ember. Like this card is so important for this color. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward in order to build decks, basically.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
doing chat stuff.
I like your setup with the chat and everything. That's pretty cool.
Oh, thank you. I have no idea. We have no idea what we're doing, but we do better every week.
It doesn't show. That's an important part. Right?
That's because we finally got a neon sign.
Yeah, that helps, right? It makes it looks more professional. It's just visual.
Yes,
it is.
Yeah. Every good show has a neon. I don't know what it is. I noticed it when Earlmeister started doing it. I'm like, wow, I look at that neon sign, and I just saw them everywhere.
Damn, maybe I should buy one now.
I don't know what it is. Yeah, that's
a secret.
I need to look for one that's like Lorcana logo or something and just put it in my background. Like now, all I have is a bunch of Call of Duty disc and trophies and stuff. But yeah, it's a bit blurry though. But yeah.
Call of Duty trophies.
Yeah, because I'm working on that game, so it's every year we ship a game, we get a prize that's like these things. You have a CD and your name and your role.
Did you say you're working on Call of Duty?
Yeah, for like 10 years now.
Oh wow! Okay, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm a lead engineer, so I guess my logical skills are being worked with like TCGs, but also my day-to-day job. So I guess that helps.
Interesting.
That's awesome. I played so much Call of Duty.
Everybody knows that game, right?
Yeah. That's one thing I didn't know. That's cool.
Yeah. I miss it, and at the same time, so much time.
I've been a competitive player for a long time, and not just in TCG. I grew up with a older brother, and we always put into like a competitive space with video games. Like we wanted to win, and it was not toxic, but quite competitive. So I was born in that, and I'm really having trouble to play a game not competitively. So it's kind of impossible for me to let my opponent win by doing a mistake on purpose. So what I prefer to do instead is to pick a less strong deck, like a weaker deck, so that I can play the deck optimally, but still maybe lose because it's not a good deck. I much rather prefer that, because it's kind of impossible for me to do a mistake on purpose. And also I think it's bad for the other player, because they will see it and feel it. So yeah, I've been competitive in TCGs, in FPS. I did some competition in Call of Duty also, and Gears of War and Halo. So yeah, it's been part of my life forever. So yeah.
Fascinating. Competitions. What led you? out of curiosity to that field, to being like a video game like software engineer. Is that?
Yeah, well, outside of Magic, like my free time was usually in video games. I'm like, oh, while I can play it, what is it about to make them? And at some point, there's some type of games I actually enjoy more making them than playing them. So that's how I kind of get into this. And I always have been like a very logical person, like very Cartesian. So it's easier for me to make games in the engineering way than artistic way, because my art skills are very bad. So yeah, it was a good fit for me. So now I can play them, make them, and have fun in both ways.
That's awesome. Awesome. So you said you enjoy playing everything. Do you have a favorite archetype, or and if you don't want to answer this question, feel free not to, because again, we don't want to tip your hand out, but is there a deck that you enjoy playing more than others and that you like?
Yeah, I usually like mid range and control more, so that's how you've seen it with the decks I was saying. Like red purple was kind of control mid range. The blue steel I win with was the wheel version back in the day when it was pretty strong, and then red blue was obviously control and did well. And then when I went with purple steel, that was a bit out of the box. I mentioned it on stream also. Like I practiced only, I think, 8 best of 3 with it. It went super well and just went to continentals with it, which was kind of a bold move, but it worked out, and everybody was shocked I was playing this color combination, because I think I've never played it at any leagues or tournament locally. So yeah, it was a big surprise. But at least this time the deck color on the stream was right. Like they were telling I'm on purple steel, because back in Chicago it was saying I was on green, I mean emerald amber, but I was in ruby sapphire, so it's quite different pairing. But yeah, archetype, I mentioned it before, like anything that can draw as well, I think it's important, because what I like about card games is having decisions to do, and if your end is quite empty, you kind of lose that like depth of decision making. So any deck that can give me a lot of cards where I can have more decisions to do each turn, I do enjoy them more. So I can play some aggro decks time to time just for like quick and fun pleasure. There's also very good decision with the board. It's not that it's a easier deck to play, just that you have less decision in hand and maybe more on the board until someone B-preps you. But yeah, so deck that draws and have more decision. And what I like also, and they started to introduce this more, especially in the green, it's card with flexibility, like different ways to play it. Obviously, the bounce package in purple is interesting. You need to choose which card you bounce with the mana min, but you also have card in green steel that have a choice. You can do this or that. And they used to have a lot of these kind of cards in Hearthstone with the Druid class and other games. So I like that. I like to have different ways to play the card, because it's more decisions at the end of the day, and that's what the fun's about for me. So yeah, more card and more decision, a bigger problem space without having a game that goes on time. That's the part that stressed me the most, especially when I was playing on red blue going on time. But as much as I played the game, the deck like hundreds of game, I think I was playing it fairly fast. So unless my opponent's also on a control game and playing maybe a little slower, we go on the distance on the third game. I never went on time at the DLC, so that's good. I'm trying to keep that true for the future.
Yeah. So how are you feeling about, speaking of the future, how are you feeling about Worlds?
I'm feeling so good. Just a quick fun fact, like I played Keyforge a bit, and I got my invite to the World Championship of Keyforge.
Nice.
But it actually never happened, because as you can see here, it was in 2020. So I was hyped, I was ready, and it was super cool format. Like it was in teams for some reason. Like if you qualified, you can bring 2 other players with you, and you go in teams at the World Champ. So that's cool, because the player I eliminated in the finals to get my spot, I could actually invite him and play with him, because it was one of the best players locally. So I was super happy about that, thinking about who I will bring with me to get the best chances, how we can split our deck strategy and stuff. And then, like, I think it was maybe 3 months before COVID happened, it was canceled. And after that, they got purchased by another company, and they said they didn't recognize these invites, so they were basically worthless now.
Wow.
So that kind of
Oh.
strike me quite hard, and I just went away from that game. It was fun, but not as fun as Lorcana anyway. So I feel like now it's my real chance to go to a world after missing one because of a pandemic. I'm really hoping nothing happens to this one. I know there's traveling challenges sometime with the US. Hopefully everything gonna go well for that. But yeah, I don't want to miss another world for a reason outside of my control. That would be sad. So yeah, it's like a second chance, and I think it's gonna be a good one. I'm more hype about this one than I was about the other one. I think the game is better in my opinion, and I know a lot of folks that's going there, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. And it's at Walt Disney World, so like it's gonna be my third time going there, but my first time going there as a parent. So I'm gonna see how it feels
Oh,
because I did extend my stay past the tournament to kind of enjoy it
Oh.
with the family. So yeah, it's gonna
that's
be fun.
awesome.
Yeah, so I'm gonna
You
be able to celebrate the win or just think about something else if I lose.
That's something that
The
I
win-win
said
situation.
to everybody at the North American Championship. I was like, if there's anywhere to go to a tournament, it's at like a Disney park, because if you win, you can celebrate at the parks. If you
Yeah,
lose, you can go to the parks and have fun and just kind of
exactly. It's a
shrug
win-win
it off.
situation.
Yeah. Is there an attraction or anything you're looking forward to the most at Disney World
Oh,
after the tournament or anything?
the last time I went to Disney World, the Star Wars park was getting built. I could see like the crane and stuff building the Star Wars. So I'm definitely going there because I've never been there. Was not there yet. But yeah, with the two little child, maybe it's gonna be harder to do the more intense rides, but still
Yeah.
just navigating the parks and seeing everything and having good time with the family. I think it's gonna be a great time anyway. So the Star Wars definitely something I want to visit, and any new rides that wasn't there back in the day. That's something I would look forward to try. So yeah.
There's plenty of new
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Oh
Right?
yeah, there's so many. And now they announced they're gonna make a new park in is it Dubai somewhere in this area. So maybe the next world would be there just to celebrate the new. I don't know. It's probably not going to be ready yet, but yeah, it's interesting that they make a new park. So maybe
Mhm.
another DLC potential.
Yeah. Yeah, let's 10 years from now, I hope we've done like the world tour.
I do too.
Disney
Yeah,
property.
10 years. There's six park, and now there's gonna be a seventh. So maybe just 7 years gonna be enough, unless they keep making new ones. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah,
Keep adding more. Disney.
I know it's been like one of the, I guess, life goals of some people to visit all the parks, which are all
Mhm.
in very cool cities to visit. So yeah, it would be a good goal, I think, to set up. So yeah, visiting all the parks, that'd be nice.
Yeah, that wasn't one of my life goals. I realized until
But now it is.
and now it is.
Sorry,
And
it's
we have
gonna
to go to
cost
all
you
the
a lot.
parks.
It's gonna cost you a lot, but it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
And the Japan rides seems to be so cool
Yeah.
with the animatronics. I've seen videos of like the Frozen and like, oh wow, the animatronics on these are so realistic. I want to see them live. But yeah, it's Japan, so it's probably in my top 3 of destination I want to visit the most. But it's quite expensive, so I'm gonna need to figure out the best timing to go, especially with kids. So yeah.
Yeah. Ravensburg, if you're watching, next Worlds.
So I was gonna
It's
say, like, one of my favorite things about TCGs is the ability to travel, like with friends, and like what better excuse that to go to a different country than for a trading card game that you're playing.
It's funny you mentioned that because I played a digital game by Capcom, which is a Japanese company, and they hosted their worlds in Japan, and I was like 10 spot bubble out of the qualifying, and they did pay the trip, so I was very close to go in Japan to play a real-time TCG game there. So yeah, hopefully this is another example as the Worlds from 2020 where I get a second chance to go to Japan for a competition, and I think Norcana is a best bet for the future for that.
Yeah.
They just need to catch up, right? Like right now in Asia, there are like
Mhm.
some sets in the past. So yeah, as soon as they catch up, maybe
Yeah.
we're gonna be able to compete there. I know they had rules like you need to speak Japanese. So that might be something I need to learn. But yeah, we'll see. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it will be so fun when with as fast as Lorcana is expanding, when all these new markets and even more that where the game hasn't been released yet, there's so many that are waiting for it still. When everybody's on the same page, on the same set, we're all playing the same game. You know, I have a lot of fun now with Brandon and some of the other commentators that we work with, like comparing the meta in like Europe and America.
Yeah. Just that is
Yeah.
a big difference, right? I've seen it in Continental, like the Emerald Amethyst in Europe was very popular. I guess Artabax has a big role to play in that.
Yeah.
But then you see the split in North America, and there's very few Emerald Amethyst. So yeah, it's interesting. Just these two are very different, and I'm pretty sure the Asian market are gonna bring some very spicy stuff. So yeah, looking forward for that. I'm actually seeing some of the, I guess, their set champ and their tournament on Ink Deck, and that brings me so much memory. It feels like years ago, but
Yeah.
it was like just 1 year ago we were playing those kind of deck, maybe a bit different, but yeah, it's fun to get a step in the past and see the decks from like only having 2 or 3 sets.
I can't wait for them to catch up, because even I haven't paid too much attention to it, but occasionally I'll see what they're brewing over there, like in China and Japan. And like even in those past sets, you know, we remember what we were playing over here, but I'll see some stuff that they've cooked up over there that I'm like, oh man, this would have been, you know, crazy if they had been playing along with us. And so I love when we have, you know, multiple different regions that are all on the same format, and everyone can kind of bring their own spice. I think it's also just fun to sort of compare, you know, which region is the best in the world when we're all, you know, on the same format. It can be kind of fun to see who can come up with what.
Because honestly, I like the fact that, you know, it's called a World Championship, because it sounds pretty big. It's like the Olympic of this TCG, for example. But it's kind of bad that it's called World, but not every country could be there. So I feel like as soon as Asia are catching up and they can participate in the same world, that's going to be a much more true World Championship than it is right now. So yeah, I'm looking forward for this. And it's funny, I see someone in the chat that mentioned Alexander as a princess. I guess it's Alexandru Taberna, which is also from Quebec. So yeah, I remember that too. It was pretty funny to see that in person. I think it was in Toronto. Yeah, fun time.
Yeah, I have I think I have pictures of that somewhere. That was great. I have very fond memories of that DLC as well. It was I don't know. It was really neat because we did see some of the same folks that were there who were at other challenges, but because it was the only one in Canada, there were a lot of people who that was going to be their only challenge. And I don't know. It was just really neat. I don't know. I can't explain it. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, the feeling in the room was a bit different. I only did 2 DLC, Chicago and Toronto, and yeah, I have a lot of players in my locals that might not even have a passport, so there was limited to this DLC, and I'm really hoping they have more DLC in Canada next year. Hopefully one in Montreal, but yeah, it was fun. I mean, always good to be local, and we could have seen it in the players. I was chatting with everyone I played. We had a good time, and a lot of them were from from Canada. So yeah, it's good to have that kind of different vibe, because it's just a different country, different money. It's funny because when you were going to the vendors, I believe the price was sometime in US or Canadian dollars, and it's very different depending on the economy. So yeah, it's a very different vibe, but it's a fun one. I think I only did 2. I had a very good time in 2. I hope that all DLC went as well as those 2 I did, because it was fun. And something I didn't mention earlier, because I'm much more of a digital player, but basically the Chicago tournament was my very first tournament with maybe like more than 30 people in physical games. Like I did big tournament in digital, but it really don't feel the same when you're doing a 1,000-player tournament digitally. Like you don't have the feeling, the room, the noise, meeting people. So you're just alone in your basement playing on the computer. So if there's 1,000 people or 100 people in the online tournament, you don't really feel a difference. But when you're in person, that's a very different vibe. And because I don't play a lot of physical game, maybe I can do a little anecdote about that. Like my shuffling skills are quite bad. I need to get better at it. I wish a judge could just shuffle everyone's deck and don't care about the shuffling. But what happened is that I was not used to resleeving cards. So some of my cards were a bit more used because I had them for like set 2 and it was like set 5 or something. So the judge called me at Chicago like 5 minutes before the day 2 start, which is quite late. That was a bit stressful, and said, "Oh, you need to resleeve your deck." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I guess I understand why. Like if there's a card that's more broken, that makes sense." Good thing I had a few sleeve. So I started to resleeve the cards, but then I sleeve only the one they mentioned, but they then put it back together and they were easy to distinguish from the others. So they said, "Oh, resleeve the entire 60 card." So I'm like, "Oh, that's gonna take a while," and it was starting like 3 minutes. So I resleeve everything super fast. But the thing is, when you sleeve decks with double sleeve, there's kind of a bunch of air in the card. So in my first round, I had like my big deck because it was full of air. I'm like, "Oh, that's it." And it's super slippery because they were brand new sleeves, super slippery. So usually what I do is like I kind of press on the deck to remove the air because it's way too high. So the round was getting started. The timer was on. I just pressed on my deck and all the cards just went on the ground in every side, upside down, upside up. I'm like, "Oh no, what I'm doing?" And now I see 3 judges coming to my table. They start to pick up the cards on the ground. I feel so bad about it. Like they are literally on the ground. I'm like, maybe I should not touch anything because I don't want to be like looking as a cheater. So I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna let them do their job and wait for their their commands on what to do next. And then they just gave me the pile with cards in every direction, up and down. And they said you need to put them all back in the good like position, obviously, and count them because maybe there's one that dropped far away. So now I had to count the cards again, make sure they're all in the same orientation. But I was on red blue and the deck is slow, so that was quite stressful to do this on the first game. And I was against another red blue player, so we kind of lost maybe like 4 or 5 minutes there, and that just increased the stress. It was my first day 2 in a big tournament, so it was not starting well, but hopefully it did finish well as a top 16 cut finish. So funny story, just because I'm not used to manipulate cards, kind of failed there, but it was fun.
That is funny. I'm storing these stories away for later, Brandon.
Yeah, we can bring them up later. That's smart.
Yeah, that's fun. Who knows? Googly, who is or Joe, who was in the chat here earlier, may have been one of those judges. But yeah, from that,
it could have been
from that like inauspicious start and that stress all the way to here now, getting ready for Worlds. It's so interesting to think back that you were just another competitor at that time. Sitting in a room of 1,000 people at Chicago.
I'm not sure it was 1,000 Chicago.
Yeah, I think it was 1,000 only. It wasn't 2,000.
Yeah, it was 1,001. Yeah, not as big as Atlanta, but still a lot of good competitors in there. I know a lot of names from this one. So I now also had the chance to meet Ed there. Like, obviously, I finished my top 16 game. I was quite exhausted playing red blue all day, going to top 16. So I wanted to just go do side events just for fun. And for some reason, I met Head there. I didn't know he was a great player. I was just like, "Oh, you're my first opponent of like a pod." And he just destroyed me completely because he was on a red-purple deck and playing a lot of Tremaine. So I'm like, okay, now this guy plays really fast. So obviously knows what he's doing. And he just has a deck that beats red-blue. So I'm like, "Did you lose to a red blue ever today?" And said no. So okay, yeah, I'm not crazy. He's a good guy with a good deck to beat red blue. So I got crushed so hard, but it was fun. Like it's great when you can, even if you don't know someone, just by the way they play in their card and how the game goes and the speed at which they do their game plan. It's easy to see that it's a good player. And then I figured that he was indeed a good player that won another DSC and won the NA Continental. So yeah, I met a lot of people in Chicago that are pretty good, and it's good that now we can chat more often together and build the fun there and the collaboration and stuff. So yeah,
that's awesome. All right. Well, before we're gonna get close. We're close to closing down the show here for the evening. Before we do that, I do want to take one question from the chat because I think it's interesting, and it's from another Canadian, although on the other side of Canada. Canada. Oh no, that's not the question. Boom. So Stephen asks an interesting question for a young game like Lorcana and people who are new to the game. Are we likely to see some of the same people at next year's Worlds, kind of the same players continue to exist at the top of the competitive ladder? Or will we see a bunch of new faces? Do top players stay in a TCG, in a game, for a long time? What do you all think? I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah. Well, I think once you like a game and you're pretty good at it, you have a lot of incentive to keep playing. And obviously, the prizes in Lorcana are pretty good. Like, it doesn't cost much, I think, for Ravensburger to print those very shiny cards, but collectors really pays a lot for them. So it's easy to pay back your traveling and stuff. So it's a very good game to keep playing competitively if you're having success with it. I would expect a lot of new faces and players still because of the rotation. It's easier for new players to get in without purchasing the whole like first chapter that was very hard to find back in the day. So the rotation, I would believe, would bring new players, so we could see new faces because of that. But I also expect that the best player right now are still going to play the next year and still perform because it's a strategy game, right? So it's not like a physical sport where at some point you kind of pass the age of being the best. Like you have like a peak you can get in strategy game, and we see it in chess also. You can get older. Obviously, if you're very old, you're gonna have maybe a little bit more struggle, but you can be good for a very long time. So unless you really change game because there's a new one that interests you more, I think good players are going to still be very good, and we're gonna see some familiar faces. And also, it's a physical card game, so you can see it as an investment. And for any investment, it's possible that being there for longer run is more, it's better. So yeah, I expect the best to be still there, but also new faces, and especially new faces from the Asia market. That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
They just need to announce the DLCs, right? I think that's what everyone is looking for, so that we can have like the official competitive scene and maybe qualify for another world. So I think that's the only thing missing. But as soon as this gets announced someday, then I think the hype is gonna come back very high for Lorcana, and it's gonna be interesting. And especially with rotation, I think the deck building skill are going to be put to the test the most, because usually there's a new set, so you can take your deck that works really well and maybe add one or two cards that make it better. But now you have one new set, but also 4 set that goes away. So it's very much harder to update your deck. You might need to build a new one completely because you don't have the key cards anymore. So I think the deck building skills is going to be rewarded for the next season of competitive game.
Yeah. Brandon, I'm interested in your answer to this question too, but I would be remiss if I didn't say to everybody over on Twitch, we did get rated by Amanda Shuffles, I believe. Amanda, thanks so much for jumping in, and I hope you had a great show. Appreciate you stopping by here. Brandon and I are here with Patrick Cote, one of the qualifiers, one of the competitors in Worlds coming up here in, gosh, just a little over a month. We're just getting close and kind of picking his brain a bit and getting to know him. So yeah, thanks for the raid and thanks for stopping by. Brandon, what's your answer to the question? Are we going to continue to see the same faces at the top of the game for the next year or so, or will we get new challengers up there battling it out?
I mean, admittedly, my experience with trading card games is far less than a lot of the veterans, especially the ones that are up here qualifying at Worlds. So it's a little bit difficult for me to say just from experience, but for the games that I've followed and for the duration that I've followed them, the players that are really good usually stay really good, and we tend to see those same names kind of continue to pop up as they continue to do well in those card games. So I would be surprised if we didn't see some repeat, people come through Worlds next year. And but I also get really excited to see new faces as well. Not to get us on a tangential topic, but something that I really enjoy seeing are like children's leagues and different card games, and like seeing kids kind of like progress and get better as they get older. And then when they finally kind of make their debut into competing with all of the adults, you will get some players that have improved as they've gotten older. And so, who knows who we'll see. I'd be surprised if we didn't see some repeats, but I'd be excited to see some new people as well.
You mentioned the kids league. I think that would be so good for Lorcana. Like, obviously it's the IP to do it. I know Pokemon did it, but like Lorcana, it's so kid friendly as an IP, and they recognize the character. And like I mentioned, I'm a dad. My dad showed TCG to me, and if my boys like TCG, I might show them. And each generation is just better than the previous one. So maybe one of them would do good in a competition, but we'll see. They're too young yet. But if there's a League of Lorcana for kids, I think that's gonna be very interesting. I'm gonna look into that for sure.
Yeah,
I agree. Brandon's heard me say this like 100 times now, but my first taste of competitive TCG play was a junior super series that when they had those back in Magic back in the day, 16 and under, and I loved it, and because of I played in a couple of those, I actually took the plunge at the age of like 15 to go play in a state tournament for Magic. And in Maine, those are small, you know, but still I was playing against adults for the very first time. And it was a huge kind of leap for me. And I don't know if I would be into TCGs right now, or at least competitive TCGs, if it wasn't for the Junior Super Series. And so I'll be forever grateful for that program while it existed. So
yeah, it's a good point you mentioned that, because with like Kids League, it means that you have chance for kids to compete with each other, which might be a little bit easier. I mean, to win. I mean, there's kids that are very good. There's one at my local league that always finds out what I'm going to play and picks a counter deck for some reason. But yeah, there are kids that are very good. So it's not that they're not good. It's just that the scene is different. And I would expect that it's less stressful for kids to do competition against other kids. Like I remember in Chicago, there was a kids very close to me that got deck check, and I could see on their face that they were very stressed about that. They thought they did something wrong. Like they had the judge coming to them, check their deck. They were playing against an adult, and maybe there's some adult that are less permissive. I mean, kind with kids. I do believe in Lorcana the players are very nice and it's a good community, but still for kids might be more stressful to play against adult in those kind of environments. So just playing together with other kids, I feel must be very fun. I'm sad I kind of missed that. I didn't do any kids tournament when I was playing TCG at a kid's age, but yeah, I think it's very good for multiple reasons. So yeah, looking forward for that. Hopefully Ravensburger is listening and they're gonna do it.
Yeah. I know there are probably some challenges involved, but man, the rewards. And there are some very good young players out there making a name for themselves and kind of, being those standard bearers for Lorcana's next generation. But yeah, I was looking for the tweet actually. Somebody, very young player, I think one of Zach Bivens like mentees, like took him down in the tournament, and I couldn't find the tweet. And I'd also be remiss, since we're talking about kids playing, if this is something you're interested in, is young players, competitions, or kids leagues, or events designed specifically for kids or families, make sure you're following Dan and Lily over at Lorcana Fanatics, because they're some of the people who are really leading the charge there as well. And if you want any tips or tricks out there about how to hold these events, or you want your local game store to connect with somebody who has experience planning them and wants to know how best to expose younger players to competitive play, like they're people to follow, go check them out. So what a fun segue or tangent, or I don't know, words. But yeah, well, before we get to kind of final housekeeping, Brandon, do you want to do a thing?
Yeah, we can do a thing. I don't know how we want to do this thing. Do we want to do it together or one at a time?
I don't know. Let's
got some Rain of Jafar.
If you need to go, Patrick, let us know. If you want to hang out for this, you're more than welcome.
But you need to send me a pack. I don't have any. I'm curious to see what you're gonna get. Like, what are you looking for the most? Like, which enchanted you would like to see the most in that pack?
Oh,
there's so many
for me.
Good-looking cards. This set, it's crazy.
The enchantments look great. I personally want the Stitch enchanted card because Stitch he's a favorite of mine. I don't know if you can see, but so it's like it's just a chase card in general to get.
Yeah, and the movie's coming soon. I think Stitch is gonna be popping up a lot.
It's like this week or next week, I think, that it comes out.
And I also agree, it's probably one of the best looking enchanted. It's not the best card, that's it, but the art is amazing. Yeah. And what about you?
Oh, it's Bambi, Little Prince.
Oh yeah.
Bambi looks so good.
I just now have such a relationship with that card. I think that's that for me. There's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of really good enchantments, but Bambi I think is my chase. Chat, what do you all think? Do you think we do this at the same time, like a card each, or to see who has the better pack, or do you think we do one at a time? I don't know. Let's leave it up to the viewers.
Give you guys 60 seconds to
and while they're doing
out.
that, we'll say these for both Brandon and Aaron and I, these came out of, these are the starter deck packs.
Yes.
Yeah.
I took it out of this one specifically.
So it's so these are not from a booster box. They're from a starter pack. So that who knows. And huge thank you to Ravensburger and the team there for sending us these so we could share them with you to build up some excitement for this set. It was really, really exciting getting to share this product with you all and getting to share this pack with you all. And thanks to the Ravensburger team for making it happen. We are eternally grateful.
Eternally grateful, yes.
So Brandon, the chat, I've got battle one at a time, same time, battle, same time. I think
it's like split.
How do we know who wins with the battle because the prices are not really there yet?
That's true.
The most beautiful card. The chat will decide who wins.
I'll say, let's do this. So Amanda, who rated us here, Amanda Shuffles, channel that we love, says one at a time. We'll let her be the tiebreaker vote. So we'll stay over it and do one at a time.
Okay, sounds
good. Would you like to go first?
I can. Yeah, sure. I'll go first, and you can finish us off. So we got the Rapunzel pack. Do you guys remember? I have the packs. They're like foil shiny almost. I don't know if they're always that, if they've been that way in previous sets, but I think they look really good. I'm gonna have trouble opening this because these packs
are on camera.
When
you're on camera.
Yeah, it's on camera. It never takes me this long to open them. We're almost there, people.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
It's from the Ruby Steel starter, right? So
there
you need to pull a Ruby enchanted like Lilo. That would be nice.
Yes. The Lilo or the Stitch would be great.
What's your chase?
So
I think it would be the Lilo. Like I like the card itself, so I think it's pretty playable and it looks good. So yeah, I think I would love to get a Lilo
out of this. All right, we're just gonna. Sorry, my camera's backwards. We're just gonna go one at a time. Got the Dewey. Also, I think the Dewey, Huey, and Louie, they're like connected. Yeah. If you get the foil versions, I think.
Oh, it's only the foil that cuts the border. Interesting.
I think so. Dump Truck, one of my favorites of the set, just for the name.
The Alice. Shout out to Gate and Call for the brilliant reveal on that one.
Get out. We're getting to the uncommons. Napoleon. The Coachman.
That's a very good one.
Oh, we got a lady. Okay.
Hey,
we got the other lady.
Ooh.
Okay. We got the Pro Iago.
Now, and these are, I can't remember. Did we have the rainbow foils last set, or is this the first set with the rainbow foiling?
You mean for these? I think this is. We had these for Arcasia's.
I should know the answer to that. I get confused because we got the rainbow foils for the Japanese product, and at the same time as we had cold foils, and so I can't remember where they came in. But yeah.
So I'll say real quick, I'm very excited for this lady because a little bit of a spoiler out of all of the other stuff that I've opened. I've already opened 3 of them, and I'm very excited to play with this card. So this completes that play set.
It seems like a very strong card, to be fair. So. Yeah. China Dog is gonna have a lot of love this set.
China Dog is like eating this set. Yeah. Well, good. That's the best when you open the pulls that you need. Oh goodness!
On camera.
Yeah, you probably should have been trying to open while I was opening mine.
So part of the challenge when you do pack openings, one thing I learned very, very early on is if you're off camera at all, somebody in the chat is going to accuse you of shenanigans. So like you not only have to open,
do it on screen.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to open it without seeing what's in the back too.
Yeah, don't spoil it for yourself.
Yeah, so let's. All right, let's see here. I'm just gonna get these lined up here. So let's see. I'm used to you doing this in an overhead camera, so this is strange. All right, Rhino. from Bolt. And then we have Mad Dog, aptly named. Mrs. Potts.
The wannabe Hiram.
Wannabe Hiram, right? But we have a Hiram at Mom, can I have a Hiram? But we have a Hiram at home.
R.I.P.
Mushu.
This one's good.
Khan.
On to the uncommons.
Madam Mim and the uncommon. One of Aaron's favorite characters.
Ooh.
The nephew's piggy bank. I'm really drawing this out. There's the Coachman again. Okay. We're Coachman twins.
Joe says Coachman has some interesting rules stuff as well. So
let's see here. Oh, it's just a rare. It's Clawhauser. Probably one of my favorite characters from Zootopia.
Zootopia 2 coming out, by the way. There's some trailers.
Finally.
Trailers for that I saw today. Yeah.
I need to. And no, source in the comments. Enchanted Tramps to the Moon. Once I get mine, like let's.
I have one. That would be great, actually.
Another rare.
Another rare.
Jared Gearloose, and I'm not even gonna peek this one. I'm just gonna go. Oh,
Dodo.
Oh, the dodo. It's still a beautiful card. And you can see that gloss foil treatment there. 6 for 3. Yeah, that was fun. And
that was fun.
The lore.
Yeah, I didn't get a puzzle piece. I got a story piece. So
I need to do that flip book. See what that. So there it is.
I noticed. Well, never mind. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to spoil it for everybody.
All right, back to your regularly scheduled camera. All right. Well, with that, I got a couple housekeeping things and then ask you all for closing comments. And Patrick, most of all, I want to make sure people know where they can follow you and your content. Even though your podcast is in French, they can still communicate with you in English and maybe get some English answers.
Yeah.
But a couple things. First off, thanks everybody for hanging out with us here on a Tuesday, whatever platform you're watching us on, whether it's the 0 people on Facebook or people on YouTube or Twitch or X or the platform formerly known as Twitter. Thanks for hanging out with us on our off night. We'll be back next Monday at 8 o'clock for our normally regular scheduled program. Not only do you want to come back because, I don't know, we're fun, but also we need to figure out what Patrick played in his set and follow up there. I do want to give a shout out to all the Patreon supporters who help make the show happen. And I want to do that specifically. We thanked everybody up front in the credits, but I wanted to mention that specifically because our newest Patreon supporter, as of I think last week, Matt Sonhalter, is here in the chat. So Matt, thank you for being awesome. And I'm actually after the show going to work on a Patreon update, a free update to anybody who's following on Patreon. Some thoughts on this set, so you can. So that's what I'm doing after this. By the way, Aaron. And with that. Brandon, what did we miss? When's
the Lorecast? Is the Lorecast coming this week again? Right? Is that on Thursdays? They're happening weekly on Thursdays. I don't know what the plans are for that, but tune into the official Disney Lorcana Twitch stream. I think it's just twitch.tv/Disney Lorcana for that because they're always up to some fun stuff. Other than that, I guess you'll see the 3 of us at Worlds.
Yeah. I had one more note. Actually, Patrick, before I want you to have the last word, Patrick, because I'm dragging this out. One more note. A couple weeks release event. Southside Gaming is doing another one of their big tournaments. They're doing a release weekend 8K scaling tournament. With the potential for top 16 prizing and locked 100 entrants. Is going to be a big turnout again. And Aaron and I are going. We're going to both go down there and do some commentary there. So if you're going to be in South Florida, check out this tournament. And, SSG always puts on a good show. And if you're not going to be there, take a look at their Twitch stream if you want to see what people are doing on release weekend with the meta. So we should see some spice and some fun stuff. So Aaron and I will be down there. And thanks to the folks at SSG for hosting us again. All right. And with that, Patrick, how can people follow you and any closing thoughts as we sign off?
So my podcast is called Le Uninkable. So it's basically like the uninkable in English, but we do this every Monday, and feel free to reach out on X if you have any question. I'm Pat Coté _ Lorcana. I started this not Twitch, I mean Twitter, X. So yeah, I started this to talk only about Lorcana because sometimes it's kind of hard to split like personal life and gaming / professional life. So this one is all about Lorcana. I'm going to share more deck. I did already share a Jaffa wheel that I made for the CCC back in when it started before the Iron Band. And yeah, talking about Jaffa for the final thoughts, I find it kind of funny and sad that the set is called Ring of Jafar, but there's only one. I was really hyped to find new shift target for my striking illusionist, but the only one there is, it's not really meant to be played with the illusionist. It's meant to be played with illusion. So yeah, that's my only, I guess, sad comment about this set is I feel like there should have been more Jafar, but at least we get a PvE experience against Jafar, so that's where the set name comes from, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we'll make sure we get a link to the show notes there, and that explains why I never watch live. Not only do I not speak French, but it's on Monday nights. It's a good night. But with that, I guess we should just bless you. I guess we should just sign off. We'll see you all next week.